Hey y'all, Mike with Cardboard Kingdom. Welcome back to another Disney Lorcana video. Today we're going to talk about should you invest in Japanese Disney Lorcana. I think the same thing could be said for the Chinese version, but we're going to focus on the Japanese version for right now. So for those of you that don't know, Japan is really the hub for a lot of TCGs. A lot of the big TCGs that you know about and IPs that you know about, like Pokemon, like One Piece, like Yu-Gi-Oh, all come from that region of the world. That's where they were born. That's where the TCGs originated, and then they came to the West. So a lot of, Japan has a lot of provenance as it relates to just this entire industry as a whole. Now, Lorcana is a different beast, right? And I've talked about that before if you've been around for a while. This is a TCG that's coming from the West that's trying to get worldwide exposure. Games like Magic that are very popular in the West don't really have a worldwide presence. They might have small niche communities, but no true global presence, right? Like Pokemon does. People play Pokemon all across the world. Lorcana is very much going for that effect, but it's coming from the West and going to the East, which is vastly different. Something like Pokemon in the East is drastically better than the product that comes out in the West, and so that's something that a lot of us who have a history in Pokemon like about Lorcana, right? It's coming from the West to the East, and that it kind of nationality difference or supremacy, whatever it is, like that's not going to exist in Lorcana, hopefully, right? I just want kind of an equal playing field across the board, to be honest. Like, I don't need us to have better cards or better sets or better promos. I just want it to be equal. In Pokemon, that is definitely not the case, which is unfortunate. But at the end of the day, this is a very unique scenario in terms of a mainstream TCG coming from the West and going to the East at a global scale, right? They've released in Japan, they've released in China, released in Brazil, and now we're getting to a point where some of the stuff is readily available, right? You can get on YouTube, which will show, or YouTube, you can get on eBay, which will show here, and boxes are readily available for $60 for the first chapters. You can go through, get a first chapter booster box of Japanese delivered to your door for $60. A lot of these people are in the US, and that's you can get them. Now, what I would say is the answer to the question of should you invest in this is no. You got to think, guys. Disney Lorcana has been around in the West for almost a year and a half now, right? We're almost at the 18-month mark. Whenever you look at something like Japan and China and as we get into like Latin America and things like that, they have had Lorcana for like 2 to 3 months, and so it's incredibly new there. And you have to think back to Ravensburger's original point of view as we think about Lorcana as a game and as a collectible and as an investment vehicle. Lorcana is not centered around the collectors yet, right? And we've talked about that a lot. We've acknowledged that a lot. The collector base is very, very much smaller, significantly smaller in scale than the actual player base. Now, the reason why that's relevant is because Ravensburger has stated multiple times from the very beginning, their mission and business statement is, we are going to print to demand for the players so they can actively get their hands on cards and play the game. That is their path that they saw to go to market. I aligned with that path, and that's why I'm here. I don't need, like a one-piece box to 300x overnight, anything like that. Like, I think that you have to have a core base of players and grow the collector base. As the player base grows, it will become a collectible. If a lot of people get deeply entrenched and have connections to the game, that's their core ideology, and so therefore I think investing in any sealed Disney Lorcana is a very risky proposition. Now, with that being said, a lot of people have been rewarded thus far, right? Pretty much, if you bought a sealed product, like a couple months after release, then it's probably up now, right? And that's really a blanket statement across the board. Some products are up 200, 300% already, which is too much in my opinion. But look, this game has insane potential, right? It's literally unmatched across the TCG ecosystem. So, as it relates to the Japanese first chapter, Rise of the Floodborn, as they get Inklings, etc., where I think it makes sense to possibly buy some of these boxes would be from any sort of like reselling or arbitrage opportunities, not from an investment, right? So this is not something that, I think you can get a case at $60 a box for 15 boxes. What's that puts the case at? I'm not really sure, maybe like around $1,000. I think there's better ways to park $1,000 right now within Disney Lorcana than to get like a Japanese first chapter box that is 2 to 3 months old, or case that is 2 to 3 months old, that is going to take months and months and years to appreciate. I think that if you're able to get product directly from Japan at cost, which is closer to $45 a box, and then resell it for $60, obviously there's some arbitrage there and there's opportunity there. Now you got to be able to source it. You got to have a Japan buyer. You've got to trust them. Like, got to do the conversions. There's a lot that goes into that, right? So it's not for the faint of heart. But at the end of the day, that's where I see the true opportunity within the Japanese product right now. And I think that there is going to continue to remain to be selling opportunities as it relates to Japanese Disney Lorcana, because Ravensburger has done a very smart thing in terms of all languages are tournament legal. So you can buy 10 boxes of the first chapter booster box in Japanese or Chinese, whatever, and then you can open those and actually use them in your decks and take them to set champs or take them to, global events and be able to participate in your native language. And so that, or it might even be your secondary or tertiary, maybe you don't even know the language, but you know that, hey, I don't want to pay $500 for a first chapter booster box right now, but I do want to build a deck, so I'm going to go the Japanese route. And I think that that's where these other language variants hold an awesome place in the market. This is your cheap alternative to think of it like a base set 2 or first chapter 2 or whatever for you guys who want the people who are getting Disney Lorcana to be extremely devalued and not love the product because they're getting an inferior product. This is kind of a good way to think about this, because you're going to be able to build decks, you're going to be able to get cards for a cheaper price per pack, a cheaper price per card in terms of singles and things like that. So this is a great way for new players to get into the game who want to compete, who want to build decks, but who don't want to go out and actually, open a first chapter booster box or first chapter booster box case. This is going to be a great alternative to open product, build your collection, and then and essentially get in at a much cheaper price point. So that's where I think investing in Japanese would make sense. Would be you want to build your deck or build your collection and you weren't here for the first chapter when it was reasonable. B would be you have some sort of direct buying opportunity in Japan for $40 to $45 a box. Then you can unload them in the States for $60 a box. I think that's completely fair. And then other than that, those are really the two use cases. I don't think going out and parking $1,000 to $1,500 for a case of the first chapter in Japanese or Chinese or Rise of the Floodborn in those language variants really makes sense. I think that would be a fool's errand. I think it eventually, right, it's a depreciating asset. At a certain point, it's going to depreciate, but at the end of the day, that could take years, and we just don't know how well Lorcana is going to take on there. Like, in my opinion, right, if you guys watch this video, then you know that I feel like Lorcana is in this acquisition moment that I don't want to miss out on. And I'm going to do a whole different video on this, but if you've made it this far into my rant, I have every single graded Pokemon card, which is quite a bit, going to auction starting next week at various different, whether it's a Z&G Emporium consigner, PWCC, every single graded Pokemon card slab. My house has 0 Pokemon slabs in it. I don't want to be kicking myself. I would much rather lose with Lorcana than continue to hold the Pokemon cards, because I just don't love it as much as I did, right? And that changes, and your passion changes, and that's okay. But I love Lorcana. Obviously, I talk about it every single day. I'm as deeply entrenched in the collecting side of Lorcana as you can be. And I'm looking at these Pokemon cards, and I have some good stuff like first edition holos, high grades and stuff, and I'm looking at them and they just don't bring me the joy that they used to. And Lorcana has completely taken over my passion. And so I don't want to miss this moment when I'm just kind of sitting on these Pokemon cards that I don't really love anymore. Like, I still love Pokemon as an IP, what it's done for me as a child, right? And the love that I have for these trading card games is deep rooted in Pokemon. So it's not like I don't like Pokemon or anything like that, but I just want to be able to have as much purchasing power as possible without taking on leverage within Disney Lorcana. And so I'm selling literally all of my Pokemon. Now I'm going to keep some binders and some I saw some raw vintage and raw modern and just some cool hits to share with my kids should they ever get into Pokemon, right? So I will still have some Pokemon cards, but in terms of my valuable stuff that's going to command thousands of dollars, it's going to auction, because I want that purchasing power once again to put into Lorcana before we get to Worlds, before we get to Pixar, before we get to just all this build up and anticipation with Fabled and things like that. I want to be well positioned, and so when it once my purchasing power increases and those sales come through and I get those payments, it will not be going in to investing in Japanese first chapter, Japanese Rise of the Floodborn. If there's arbitrage opportunities, once again, I think that makes sense. But in terms of just parking your money there and getting a box and putting it in the closet, I think you've got a lot of time before you have to worry about something like that. And at the end of the day, there's not really a need to park a bunch of money here. So those are my thoughts on Disney Lorcana investing in terms of the alternate language variants. With that being said, I'll end the video that if you do have interest in buying a box or two of the first chapter of Rise of the Floodborn, I can sell you some at a slightly discounted rate than the going market, because I do have buying opportunities and I do have product on hand and inventory on hand as it relates to the Japanese version specifically. So if you want some of these boxes, I can undercut the market a little bit and get them to you. So reach out to me on Instagram or email, Discord, etc., and we can work something out. But at the end of the day, that is what I think about investing in the alternate language variants. Keep in mind, guys, just to end the video, Lorcana and specifically in like Japan, like this company here, I don't know how to pronounce it completely, but Takara Tomy, like Ravensburger, I'm sure has instructed them like, hey, if you get low, run the printers, right? Like this stuff has to be readily available. They want to break into this market from a long-term point of view, and running out of market and boxes going up 300% and singles not being affordable in the short term is not the path forward for Ravensburger. They've stated that many times, and I think if you look at the English first chapter and that's any indication of what's to come, probably gonna have some reprints ahead of it. Now that's obviously assuming that they're able to get traction, people like the game, they fall in love with it, etc. So with that being said, guys, thank you very much for watching. I appreciate all of the support as of late. Channel's been growing very rapidly, so thank you all very much for watching. I truly appreciate it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and we'll be back with another video soon. Bye.